And share it with me, of course. Right now in California, a legal battle brewing over the good book. Members of a church group are suing the California Highway Patrol after a pastor is arrested for reading the Bible out loud in public. Douglas Kennedy told us about this story last hour. Right now we're joined by Dwane Cates, a defense attorney, and Tad Nelson, a former prosecutor. So the setting here, guys, is the pastor is standing outside a DMV office. Of course, there are all kinds of folks lined up to get in because the office isn't opened yet. He's out in the parking lot 50 feet away from the entrance to the building, and he gets arrested. Dwane, is that an abuse of police power?
It certainly is, because they had no reason to arrest him. The statute that they claimed that they arrested him under would require that he would be obstructing the entrance, which he clearly wasn't, or that he was intimidating people. And there's not one person that came forward and said that they were intimidated by what he was doing. He was simply reading the Bible. He wasn't threatening people with damnation. He was just simply reading passages from the Bible. And that's not against the law.
Tad, why does reading the Bible aloud in a public parking lot get you arrested?
Well, for one, you know, the unfortunate thing here whenever you have these religious zealots do these kind of things is they're mixing up what the First Amendment says. The First Amendment talks about the exercise of religion, which we can't obstruct, but it also talks about the abridged use of freedom of speech. Unfortunately, those two items are back to back in the First Amendment. And the churches seem to want to think that anything they say religiously is okay. In this situation, it's not. The reason they have the statute here is so somebody can go into that DMV, mind their own business, take care of their business without anybody. And intimidation, the way they're using the word intimidation here doesn't mean that they're scaring them. It's more like bothering them. None of us, it's just like at an airport. We all walk the other way when we see the Hare Krishnas coming at us. We all do that. We want to walk to the other side of the hall. And that's what the statute in this case is written for. So these people aren't bothered when they're doing their business. The officer came by. He asked them to leave. They still didn't want to do it because they were there to make a point. It was staged. They had the film rolling, and they knew what they were there to accomplish.
Dwane,
and that's to get on your show.
I don't much like going to the DMV. I mean, it's always an unpleasant experience. And if I get there early and there's already a line outside the door, I'm already irritated anyway. I'm guessing that probably the last thing I want to hear is somebody yelling at me even from 50 feet away.
And that may be true. However, Tad's wrong. I mean, the statute says intimidate. It doesn't say bother. It doesn't say irritate. It doesn't say not be obnoxious. It says intimidate people. The statute was designed for protesters that were blocking entrances to places and were disrupting business. There was no business disrupted here. The business wasn't even open yet. People were simply standing in line. I wonder what would have happened if he had been reading the Constitution of the United States, if he'd have been reading the Bill of Rights, if he'd been reading War and Peace. He never would have been arrested. This is purely about preventing him from making a religious expression, and he has a right to do that.
Tad, what if he and the other church members had taken a bag of, you know, little mini Bibles and walked up to every single person in line and offered them mini Bibles? Could he have been arrested for that?
Absolutely, because that would have been the same thing. It would have been associated with speech. But here's why what the church was doing was so disingenuous. If they were really concerned about getting their message out, why didn't they even attempt to follow the permitting process? And I'll tell you why. Because they didn't want to get their message out. They wanted the controversy. They wanted the film rolling. They wanted to get arrested. They wanted the publicity. That's what's unfortunate. It's so disingenuous when they do this. All they had to do is go apply for a permit. They could have been told where they could have made these arguments, and they could have made them and accomplished their goals.
This wasn't about permitting.
But their goals weren't to... Sure it is.
This had nothing to do with permitting.
It's about relaying the message.
They came up with the permitting argument days after this arrest happened, and there was a big ruckus about things, and then they came forward and said, oh yeah, well, first they came out with this statute. They couldn't even charge him with the statute. Then they came up with the permitting argument, and that came out days after the arrest, not at the time of the arrest or hours after the arrest.
Well, I'm not talking about the permitting as far as the police argument. I'm talking about the permit as far as the religious argument. Why didn't they go seek a permit? If they really wanted to get their message out, they were disingenuous. They accomplished their goals. They're on the TV. We're talking about them.
All right. Yeah, well, they did do that, and Douglas Kennedy is keeping an eye on this story for us. As I understand it, it is yet to go to trial. We'll see what happens to that minister who was arrested. Tad Nelson, Dwane Cates, thank you both.